Scruffy Tales presents The Yelling Hill, a Bimpuff adventure, read by Sarah,
Fema, Jordan,
and Isabel.
Away, away across the salt taffy sea, in the far, far land of Pittlepots, there is a tiny town called Dribblebottom. In that town, all the houses are made out of vegetables, and on a leafy lane is the coziest mushroom house you ever saw, though you probably haven't seen many. In that house, with his mama and papa, lives a little orange-haired slobbit named Bimpuff and his nubbly dog Groovis. Slobbits live for a very long time. Bimpuff came from an especially old and distinguished family of slobbits. Although Mother Bimpuff claimed she was only 153 years old, her ancestors had lived in Dribblebottom for generations. Bimpuff's father was 199, and his grandmother was 245. And Bimpuff's grandfather was just about to celebrate his 299th birthday, which was a very important one. The villagers in Dribblebottom prided themselves on throwing a good party, so of course all of Grandfather Bimpuff's friends and relations wanted to come out to help him celebrate. And they all arrived early to help with the preparations. In fact, so many turned out that the town just wasn't big enough to house them all. The townspeople couldn't very well send anyone away, so all the houses, and especially the Bimpuff family mushroom, was stuffed to capacity with out-of-town friends, aunts, uncles, and cousins. When Bimpuff came home one day to discover a third layer of cousins sleeping in his bed, that was the last straw.
There are too many cousins in my bed, Groovis. How will I ever get learning done without my power naps? This is unacceptable. We've got to do something.
Yeah, you're right, Bimpuff. Let's toss him, can't we?
No, we can't do that. We've got to think of a better place to put them. Time for walkies, Groovis. My brain works better when it has more space around it. Now, the first thing to do is identify the problem.
No power napping?
That's the result, Groovis. But what is the cause of it?
Too many friends and relations?
The problem is, there's not enough space, Groovis. There's not enough space. We must find a solution to the problem.
Just toss him already.
Groovis grinned. Drool slobbered as he trotted along beside Bimpuff.
Can't do that, Groovis. They're here for Grandpa's birthday.
Stuff him in a cupboard?
A light twinkled in Bimpuff's eye.
Groovis, you're a genius.
I am? We're gonna stuff him in the cupboards? But wait, Bimpuff, how are they all gonna fit?
I have an idea, Groovis, but we need at least 5 pounds of Wiggle Weevils and a handful of stink cabbage seeds.
But Wiggle Weevils only live at the bottom of the Scurvacious Swamp on top of the Yelling Hill.
That's where we're going!
They walked through the meadows on the outskirts of town. Yelling Hill was by the Sea of Galloway. It was a very small sea, more like a lake. But it was called the Sea of Galloway because that sounded more impressive than the Lake of Galloway. Bimpuff and Groovis had to cross the sea to get to the Yelling Hill.
Do we have to swim?
No.
Bimpuff pulled a pink whistle shell out of his pocket and blew. A large yellow toad stuck his head out of the water by the shore.
We need a taxi.
It motioned towards its broad back and they clambered on. It was rather slippery, and there was nothing to hold on to, but somehow they finally made it across the lake. The toad grumbled as they slid off and stumbled out of the water.
We forgot to give it a tip.
I got the tip of my nose.
No, you'll be wanting that.
Well, how about the tips of my tippy toes?
Anything else?
I heard a tip about some stock futures which are supposed to be a sure thing.
That's no good.
I got some old turnip and parsnip tips.
Perfect. Here you go, Mr. Taxi Toad. Thank you very much.
The toad took the turnip and parsnip tips and croaked at Bimpuff.
Oh, no problem. Keep the change.
There was Yelling Hill.
I wonder why it's called Yelling Hill.
They began to climb. Suddenly, the hill began yelling at them.
Get off my back! What do I look like? A jungle gym? Am I a ladder? A flight of steps? Do I look like the type of hill that's just going to lie down and allow itself to be walked all over? No! I am no pushover. Get off me right now!
The hill began to shake and undulate, and Bimpuff and Groovis were tossed off and landed in the lake, next to a willowy tree that was cowering amongst a clump of rushes at the bottom of the hill.
Well, that didn't go so well. I have an idea, Groovis. Here, you'll need this bag.
He took a large pouch out of his pocket and hung it around Groovis's neck. He leaned against a branch that extended meekly from the tree.
See this bouncy branch, Groovis? I want you to sit on it.
Okay, Bimpuff.
Groovis sat on the branch. He bounced on it, up and down.
Whee! This is fun, Bimpuff.
Hold on, Groovis.
Bimpuff grabbed the branch in both hands and pulled it back and back. Groovis went back and back with it. It was a young branch, very green and springy.
Are you ready, Groovis?
Okay.
Bimpuff let go and the branch boinged forward. Groovis went flying through the air. His ears and his long tongue flapped out behind him like flags on a windy day, and he landed on the top of the hill, right in the middle of the stinky, smelly swamp.
Ooh, Bimpuff, this is simply delightful.
Groovis splashed and wallowed and rolled in the mud, slurping up the delicious slime.
Bimpuff, come up here. You're missing all the fun.
I wish I could, Groovis. Remember why we're here? We need 4 pounds of wiggly weevils. Can you see them?
Oh, you mean these? Oh, these little wiggly things? Yummy.
Don't eat them, Groovis. For goodness sake, don't eat any.
Oh, but Bimpuff, they're so wiggly and squiggly and squirmy and slimy, and I can't just eat a few.
No, Groovis, not even one, or we won't be able to finish our mission.
Oh, okay.
With unprecedented self-control, Groovis scooped the wiggling creatures into his mouth and then carefully dropped them into the pouch around his neck, careful not to swallow even one.
Oh, now what, Bimpuff?
Just step out of the swamp. I believe the hill will do the rest.
As soon as he stepped out of the swamp, the hill began to yell again.
Do you think I'm some kind of doormat that will just lay down and let you walk all over me? No! I don't, think so! You furry, fleshy little freeloaders, get out!
The hill shook violently, and Groovis was tossed up into the air. He landed with a at the bottom of the hill near Bimpuff.
No, well, that was quite therapeutic, Bimpuff.
Good. Now let's collect some stink cabbage seeds. Then home again, jiggity jig. Yum, yum, yum. Here we go.
They wandered through the patch of aptly named stink cabbage that was growing along the lake shore, picking the seeds and chowing down on the pungent leaves as they went. Then Bimpuff blew the pink whistle shell again. And this time a yellow flying fish popped its head out of the water.
We need a taxi back to Dribblebottom. On the double, please. I'm in need of a serious lie down.
They hopped on the flying fish's back and flew back to Dribblebottom. Bimpuff gave the flying fish a very special tip. He told it that the world-renowned Papa Bimpuff would be playing his tuba at Grandfather Bimpuff's birthday celebration. It was the best tip the flying fish ever got, and he bought his whole family new dry suits for the occasion. When they got back, the first thing Bimpuff did was ask Mama Bimpuff to call a general assembly so he could tell all the townspeople the plan. Next, the friends and relations were all given a lovely cup of Wiggle Weevil tea, which had the wonderful attributes of being decidedly delicious, good for the digestion, and would shrink whomsoever drank it to the size of a dormouse. Only temporarily, of course. So all the friends and relations found themselves taking up a lot less room in Dribblebottom, and therefore suddenly having a lot more space. Some even made themselves comfortable in Mama Bimpuff's cupboards. She didn't mind, as long as they didn't nibble holes in the bags of sugar or leave trails of cracker crumbs around. Meanwhile, the townspeople took the stink cabbage seeds and planted a new suburb of jumble stink cabbages, especially for the visitors to stay in. The citizens of Dribblebottom always preferred to live in houses that in a pinch they could eat. The stink cabbages grew extra quick due to another special property Wiggle Weevils possess. When they are combined with stink cabbage, they have the opposite effect of shrinkage, that is, extreme growth. The stink cabbages were watered with Wiggle Weevil tea and grew super fast. Soon there were roomy accommodations for everyone, and on their departure the guests all commented on the lovely bracing scent the cabbages emitted, especially when boiled. Finally, it was time for Grandfather's birthday. The town was filled with music and dancing and horribly good food, of the especially crunchy fungus-filled, creamy and gelatinous sort. There were also plenty of slimy, sweet, spicy, covered in prune powder sort. A great many undersea creatures in dry suits, which are the opposite of wetsuits, turned out especially to hear Papa Bimpuff play his tuba. And Grandfather Bimpuff had a birthday cake the size of 3 king-sized beds. It took him almost an hour to blow out all the candles. The party went on for several weeks. When it was finally over, Bimpuff's great-grandparents were the last ones to leave. But before they did, they danced the tarantella for 14 hours, stopping only for an occasional sip of Duggar's fortifying dinglewort drizzle. And Bimpuff and Groovis? After lots of eating and dancing and more eating, Bimpuff and Groovis slept for 3 days straight, completely undisturbed. When they awoke, they were full of wise and wondrous wisdoms, and ready for more adventures.